All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the new Nexus 6P from Google and Huawei. Even though I don't really like the name Huawei. I mean, the name Huawei is fine. The spelling is terrible. I think that this is kind of absurd here. If it's Huawei, why isn't it just W-A-W-A-Y? If it's coming from Chinese characters, there's no English translation anyway, so why make it confusing on everybody and say, oh, my phone's made by Huawei. No, just spell it easy. W-A-W-A-Y if you want to be called Huawei. Anyway, enough of the name. Get on to this brand new device here. New Nexus 6P fancy flagship professional grade aluminum series body. We're going to talk about my likes, my dislikes, everything good, bad, and ugly about this phone here in this honest review, so stay tuned. All right, so jumping straight into this body of this phone, you'll see that it is an aluminum chassis, right? Or maybe it's aluminum magnesium. Either way, it's an alloy. It's metal. It's unibody, and it is beautiful. There's nothing about this phone that doesn't stand out as being striking. You have a built-in fingerprint sensor here. You have a 12 megapixel camera here. You have a dual LED flash here with laser autofocus built in. You have some microphone here. You have your standard headphone jack here. What's also really nice about this phone is you have USB Type-C, which is pretty cool. It's reversible, kind of like the iPhone did first with their lightning cable. And you have volume and power buttons here on the side. I kind of think that they're a little bit too close. I guess for a big phone like this, it's probably okay, but I prefer buttons that are on either side. And a nano SIM slot here on the side. No removable storage, no removable battery. We're kind of seeing the end of that, it seems like, here pretty soon, especially now with the S6 and the Note series. Things are going towards built-in, again, more like the iPhone. But this body, is very, very different than, say, an iPhone body or an HTC M9 series body. I mean, it's kind of a unique design. I like it. I think that they've gone out on a limb here and done their own thing. I mean, the camera bulge here is, I don't know. I don't like it, but it doesn't really get in the way. You use the phone, your fingers on the fingerprint here. It's a very large phone, so your hands are kind of out of the way of this. And it also, if it's in the dark, you can tell which way the phone is up, which is kind of neat too. But I don't, as far as the design goes, I'm not really a fan of it. It just looks kind of odd with the top black being on the top here and the bottom. You have another antenna band or something going on here. But overall, the build of the phone is great. It feels solid. It's actually really quite heavy. I mean, if you compare this thing to like a Note 4 here, I would say that they're very, very close in terms of their weight and their densities. Like, these guys feel very, very similar. And actually, quality-wise, if Samsung hadn't put this flimsy, cheap cover on the back, the build is actually really similar. You can see that there's a metal, chamfered metal edge here on the Note 4, and that's kind of the same way this is with the Nexus 6. And they actually feel remarkably similar too. I mean, they're kind of the same thinness. They're very, very close in terms of their thickness. They're very close in terms of their height. The Nexus 6 is a hair bit taller. And I think it's almost the same width, if not maybe just a hair thinner. Yeah, just a slight hair thinner on width. But I mean, you can see the similarities between these phones. So if you own a Note 4, and if you pick up the Note 4, the Nexus 6 is going to be very, very, very slightly taller. So if you want to go and kind of get a good feel for what the Nexus 6 is going to look like and feel like in your hand, pick up a Note 4 and just imagine it to be a little bit taller. If you can't find Nexus 6 in a store, or if you know somebody with a Note 4. Anyway, get this out of here for now. Trying to think of other comments I have here about the body. The weight to me is, like I said, it's a little bit heavy. So, that's good and bad. It makes it feel like a quality product. It does kind of, I don't know, make it feel a little bit odd to hold on to something so heavy. I've gotten used to actually holding the Nexus 5X, which has a polycarbonate back, which is substantially lighter than this. And also, if you've been using an iPhone 6, it's quite a bit lighter as well. Other things to talk about in terms of the body. The design, like I said, is great. I think that Huawei has done a really good job with Google or whoever, is working together on this design of this phone. Super premium feel, super premium materials, just high quality all around. We'll jump into the software here next. All right, this guy's running brand new Android 6 Marshmallow. I'm not going to really dive into the different features of Marshmallow. I'm just going to talk about the overall software on this phone. If you look at the Touch ID, or not Touch ID, the fingerprint scanner here, you'll notice that it's extremely fast and it lets you get into the phone like lightning, and it is fantastic. I mean, I don't even know if Apple's Touch ID is as fast as it is here on the Nexus 6P. I mean, it's great. It works reliably. You can add multiple fingers. Obviously, it works with Apple or Android Pay, Google Wallet, whatever they're calling it these days. Other built-in apps too can use it. Not built-in, but other Android apps can use the security feature as well. Like, for example, Robinhood, one of the stock trading apps that I use, you can actually sign in using your fingerprint. And so that's really nice to have the immediate software integration with that as well. As far as the actual Android OS goes, very, very smooth on this phone. Very, 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 very nice. No overlay, no Sense crap, no TouchWiz crap, no Sony crap. It's just bare stock Android, and it is fantastic. It's smooth, it's quick. There's no lags on this phone. Very, 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 I think, polished. Google has finally really done a really good job with getting rid of the lag, sort of getting rid of, the inconsistencies and bugs in their software. And in general, the Nexus series has been really good with not having a whole lot of problems and issues and lag and bloatware and crap like you see on the other Android devices like Samsung and Sony have. So in general, expect a very clean interface, expect a very, very simple set of stock applications, and that might be good for some people, that might be bad for some people. So, take a hard look at what you get in terms of the software here before you actually go out and buy this device. If you're coming from something like a Galaxy Note, or a Sony Xperia, you might actually end up missing some of that software. But for me as an Android purist, I don't want any of that crapware on my phone. I don't want my phone polluted with any of that garbage. I like stock Android, plain and simple. Let me install the apps that I want. Let me do what I want to the phone. Let me root it. Let me customize it. Let me do whatever. And so that's what's really great about the Nexus series in general, is that that's one of the main software features that come with it. And sort of a counter argument to that, or maybe a complementary argument to that, is that now that the hardware has caught up and the Android software has caught up, there's not, in my opinion, there's not really a need to tinker with your phones anymore. And so the beauty of the Nexus phone, starting all the way back with the Nexus 1, back in, gosh, what was that, 2006 maybe? No, later than that, sorry, 2009 maybe. The tinkering was a really, really good aspect of this, owning a Nexus device. You could flash kernels and you could flash software and put cyanogen on it and do this and do that and really squeeze every last little bit of performance out of that device. But I don't find myself wanting to do that anymore. The phones have caught up, the software has caught up, the technology has caught up. Like I said, we've got security fingerprint ID like here on the Apple. We've got reversible plugs here like on an Apple. We've got a metal build like on an Apple. And so, I mean, obviously this is a cat and mouse game with all these companies, playing catch up to each other. But this, these Nexus phones now, I really don't think have to be tinkered with anymore. I think that stock out of the box, they're fast, they're reliable, the software is good. There's very few, if any, bugs. There's a very, very large app store now to go along with it. And so for me, this is a great device as is. You don't really have to play with it in terms of the software anymore. But that's kind of a different video. We're talking more about just the overall honest review, user experience here with this phone. More in terms of, I guess, great features of the phone. Front-facing speakers, not stereo, which whatever. The loudspeaker on this one is actually at the top. The loudspeaker on the Nexus 5X is at the bottom, and it kind of makes a little bit of a difference. I don't know. It sounds crisper, and maybe it's just a quality hardware thing from this phone, but it seems like the sound out of this guy is more crisp. And so anyway, sound quality is good. Loudness is good. Screen quality is fantastic. This is by far one of the nicest screens I've seen to date. I'm not sure the technology, again, this is not a spec review. I don't know if it's AMOLED or LCD, IPS, whatever. It's very, very good color saturation. On the same level as like a Galaxy. And I'll fire up this Note 4 here so you can get an idea of what it looks like. But you know, I don't know if you guys can see this, but the blacks are great. The color saturation is great. It's very, very close, if not the same, as an AMOLED display. And so if you like that saturated color look and you kind of like those poppy colors and the dark blacks, the screen on this phone is fantastic. Every time I pick up this phone and go to use it, I'm always wowed by the screen. You know, I really like using smaller phones because, if you guys have probably noticed, I'm a small phone guy. I like phones that fit in one hand, and this phone is big. And you know, there's lots of big phones on the market, and so I'm not going to go into that whole thing about big phones anymore. I don't like it because it's big, but I do like it because of the screen. Super, super awesome screen, great quality, great display, you know, great. I mean, everything about this phone is just really, really nice in terms of the screen quality. Trying to think of other things I can talk about in terms of the screen. Great viewing angles. You know, like I said, if you've picked up a Samsung display, you're going to find the colors and the viewing very, very similar. Jumping into the camera, camera is also fantastic on this phone. Finally, we have a phone that has great quality in terms of its resolution, its speed. The camera app, you know, is quick. Just everything about it, the low light ability, the focusing, you know, it's just fast. It's just fast, and it's reliable, and it's quick. You know, you can see here the resolution here is just, I mean, it's just great. Everything about the camera in this phone is nice. Finally, a Nexus phone with a great camera. The Nexus 6, Motorola Nexus 6 camera was terrible. The Nexus 5 camera from LG was actually pretty good. I think there was a lot of hype with people saying it wasn't good, but I actually think it was pretty good. Front-facing camera on this phone is really fast and really fun. I think it's a wide-angle lens, so that's pretty nice too. So anyway, the quality from the front-facing camera is really good. Back camera, like I said, great. Front camera, great. Overall, I've been really satisfied with the resolution, the nighttime resolution, the speed of the app, the quickness of the focusing. I think all in all, it's been really, really nice to be able to have a Nexus phone with a great camera. You know, so I'm trying to think of some negatives to talk about this phone in terms of, you know, the user experience for it. And honestly, I think the biggest one is probably the size. If you like doing things with one hand, this phone is not going to be for you. You either need to have large hands or you don't mind using two hands. And so is that a negative? Not really. It's more of just a personal preference more than anything. The price, definitely not a negative. We're talking $499 for a 32 gig unlocked model phone, which is fantastic. I think the Nexus 6P last year was in the 600s, I think. So, you know, substantially cheaper than that. 32 gigs of inboard storage. You know, again, no replaceable memory, so that's kind of a negative, I guess. Non-removable battery, kind of a negative, I guess. But you know, you look at all the other phones out there that are hugely popular, like the iPhone, no removable storage, no removable battery, very similar, but also way more expensive than the Nexus. I guess USB-C can maybe be seen as a negative. You know, there's not a whole lot of accessories right now that support USB-C, but that's going to change. So maybe the buttons on the side here being a negative, but it's really difficult for me to find negatives about this phone. Good camera, good fingerprint sensor, great build and construction. Just this is the year for Nexus. This is the year that Google is finally, I think, caught up to the Apple sort of craze. I mean, it has all the features of the iPhone. It has everything that's great about the iPhone. Plus, it has everything that's great about Android, all built into a super solid, super awesome unibody construction phone. Fantastic. This phone gets literally probably my highest marks ever if I had a scale. With, like I said, the only detraction being the size. You know, if I had to choose a phone, and we're going to do a side-by-side here later, you can watch my side-by-side of the Nexus 5X versus the Nexus 6P. I personally I'm not going to use the Nexus 6P, and that literally only comes down to I like having a phone that I can use one-handed. And it was a very, very tough decision for me to choose between the 6P and the 5X. So anyway, watch my versus video here next, and you'll see the differences between the two. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out everything else I have on YouTube, and rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.